Well, it is time for Vitruvian book review number 8 of 52 for the 2021 reading list. And this is going to be my review of The Grapes of Wrath, which I believe I read for the first time in like the 8th grade, but I read it then because I had to. It's Steinbeck's greatest work, arguably his greatest work. Very controversial at the time, which I didn't realize. I didn't remember us talking about that in school. And it was really interesting because a lot of the themes throughout the book with regard to immigration and some of those things are battles that we are fighting. And this is, don't worry, this is not going to go political. That is not the purpose of the book review. But a lot of the things that we deal with regarding immigration and kind of taking a look at both sides of the issue, Steinbeck really dove into that. And it was interesting because it wasn't foreigners, it was domestic migration. It's basically the story of the Dust Bowl era, the Depression era, farmers, sharecroppers from Oklahoma, this one family, the Joad family, that they've basically lost everything. They cannot make a living any longer in the red, dry, cracked dirt of Oklahoma. And so they decide to go out west. They have been promised by some guy, some promoter that was looking for labor, that there was plenty of jobs out there, that they could just move west. And they actually load up in this old car that is, I think I had I did have a picture of it that they actually load everything up. I think there were 12 of them, 12 family members that they loaded up in this old car, and they go through negotiating this old piece of junk truck, not a car, truck, to load the children, uh, three, I guess actually four generations of family onto this one truck to drive from Oklahoma to California with everything that they owned in it. But here's the deal, they don't just start by packing everything they own. Before they can do that, they have to sell everything that is just not an absolute necessity, to raise money, and because with them taking this many people on this old crappy truck, they can't carry any more than exactly what they need. And they set out, and Steinbeck, who's one of my favorite American authors because he does an amazing job of just describing in a way that you really, his visuals and his ability to describe everything from a mountainscape to a landscape to the way a face is drawn and gaunt or whatever. It's just truly remarkable. He was a genius in that way, and you really feel the desperation, the frustration that the Joads have as they go, and then the fear. Imagine that for a moment in 2021 America, having to just basically pick up and move and go somewhere that is as foreign. I mean, at that time in particular, too, that Steinbeck's writing this book, it might as well have been picking up and moving to the other side of the world for these people. They had never been outside of their little acreage that they had farmed for all these years, and it makes you think. And then the controversy, and it was so controversial that they actually had book burnings of The Grapes of Wrath. I mean, because and whenever I started doing the research before I started reading the book again, because I don't remember there being some sort of a socialism theme or anything like that whenever I was a kid. Of course, I wouldn't have been as alerted to that whenever I was that age. But a lot of people hated the book. It was so incredibly popular, and yet there was a lot of people that were fearful of it because there are some socialistic themes in it. Again, not going to get political or anything like that. I'd love for you to decide for yourself. But as you read it, you'll see where Steinbeck basically talks. I think it was more of Steinbeck, not to defend him or anything like that, but because it's a book review, I'm going to give you what I took from it. I think it was more of Steinbeck saying that, hey, we're better off when we are able to kind of lean on each other and take care of each other. And if nothing else, you can't help but take away from it the importance of this family in each other's lives, and how they're almost together as a family, they're almost invincible. it's truly it's incredible. And it was, I mean, again, I can't think of another I don't know a better way to just describe it than that they just really they relied on each other. But the whole journey is them being discriminated against because they're poor. It makes you think about the major difference between being stupid and being ignorant. These folks are so ignorant about so many things, and Steinbeck really does a good job of drawing that out and helping you to see the challenges that people can face if they're just ignorant to ways of the world, economics, you know, being not, I don't want to say being too trusting, but just basically not even knowing to do certain steps in research before you step out. So I'm glad I reread it. I wanted to try to add some classics to the reading list, and this is certainly an American classic. And I do highly recommend you check out The Grapes of Wrath. Again, you're probably like me. You probably read it in school at some point. I don't know if kids are still reading it. I don't know if my daughter's read it or not. I can't remember, but it's worth a read. And I actually I suggested it. I'm in Texas, and we just, as most of the country knows, we suffered some horrible, horrible winter weather here. The worst winter storm we've had in 100 years. That you know, there's no way that the state could have planned for, because it just does not get as cold as it has been the last week in Texas. And so a lot of people were just going through desperation. I mean, we had people without water, without electricity, grocery stores closing. It was just a really, really tough time. And so I recommended on some of my social media to read this book, which I just happened to be reading at the time that all this bad winter weather hit, as well as Shackleton's Endurance, which I've already done a review on. If you haven't seen that review, go check it out. If nothing else, just to get a little bit of a taste for it, and then go read one of the greatest books I've ever read in my life about just resilience and endurance and overcoming. And that's what and I can't tell you that The Grapes of Wrath, again, if you haven't read it, that it has a real happy ending, that there's some sort of overcoming that happens, because that's not the case. It just is it's a very just a very stark picture. And I actually, talking about pictures, I wanted to show you guys this because I know that you've probably seen this picture from the Great Depression. As a matter of fact, I actually typed in woman from the Great Depression, and this image is what pops up everywhere. So this is a real life photo of a woman and her children that was made famous during the Great Depression. And this woman, I don't know who she is. I don't know if her identity was ever actually known, but this is like what the Joad family was. So this was Steinbeck kind of giving the backstory, the life story of this woman's type of family. And so it really, if nothing else, again, don't want to get preachy, won't do that on my reviews, but I will tell you this. When you read this story, it makes you really realize just how fortunate we are in this first world, now America. We still got a long way to go, no doubt, but man, what even though this is a fictional account, I had grandparents that grew up in the Great Depression. They used to tell me stories. One of my grandfathers became the head of his household at the age of 11 after his father died. And now reading this book and reading what it was probably like in rural Texas, Brashear, Texas, this dinky little community. He was a sharecropper. He grew up like the Joad family from the Grapes of Wrath. However, they stayed in Texas, didn't head out west, but a lot of families did. And so it's a really it's a great reminder of just how fortunate we are to have the things we do. So I think that's always good. But then also it's Steinbeck's writing, which is just beautiful. I may do a book review at some point on his travels with Charlie in Search of America. It's an incredible book by Steinbeck. Obviously, Of Mice and Men's terrific, but this was there's a reason why this is his masterpiece, because it is just so good. And I highly recommend it to you. I'm glad that I made it book number 8 on the Vitruvian reading list. I think the next book, I'm having a tough time. There's so many I want to get to, but I think that I'm probably going to go with, and I can't grab it to show you right now, but Atomic Habits. I'm doing some research for a book that I'm trying to put together that I plan to write about peak performance, and I spoke to one of my professors from business school who actually recommended Atomic Habits to me, which I already had on the list to read at some point. I'm probably going to move that up, so hopefully you'll check back for that review. But until then, I highly recommend reading The Grapes of Wrath. It is, even if you've read it before, even if you read it as a child, go back, read it with an adult's perspective. I think you'll be glad you did. I know I am. And with that, go read. I tell you what, this has been one of the best exercises I've ever done. Those of you who are checking out the book reviews, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And again, leave kind comments, please. I'm just getting started at this. This is a way to hold myself accountable. If I read the books and do a review, and I promise a review the next week, then there's something about that that applies just enough pressure to make sure that I stay on task and I'm actually a book ahead. So I'm excited about that. And so anyway, I encourage you to go read. It is one of the greatest things I have done as far as my personal self-improvement is to make this commitment to read one book per week. It has been an absolute gift to myself, and so I hope that you'll adopt the habit as well. And with that, keep checking back to the Vitruvian Project for the book reviews, and please go to jasonrightnow.com and sign up for the Vitruvian letter. Go to my Facebook page, which is the Vitruvian Project group. I'd love to have you join. All I'm trying to do is just build a community of like-minded folks that are obsessed with the idea of improving always in all ways. So please, please, please join the community. Thanks so much for checking out this review. Grapes of Wrath. Go read it. Thanks.